Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of The Dark Knight. So, The Dark Knight is directed by Christopher Nolan and stars Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, Aaron Eckhart, Gary Oldman, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and Maggie Gyllenhaal. The story is basically about Batman, who teams up with Commissioner Gordon Harvey Dent to try and stop Joker, who keeps on killing people every day until Batman reveals exactly who he is to the world, and basically has to try and stop him in several different places from killing people, and basically try and stop him from his plans of basically killing people and messing with Batman, trying to turn him against Gotham and try and stop Joker from doing that. So the story is very good. I think that it's a very kind of revolutionary story, as basically it is basically like a superhero movie, but it kind of feels more like a crime movie, as they kind of focus more on the Joker kind of elements and his plans, and basically killing a bunch of people and that stuff. And I really think that this kind of story is different. I mean, they don't really do this kind of story that often. I definitely feel like it's very different for the superhero genre to be doing a story like this, as it feels more like a crime movie than it is a superhero movie, as it's not it's just your typical save the world kind of plot. They use more elements to it. And basically try and really rely on its story structure to make up its entire story, even there's a decent amount to it. And I do think that its main focus of the story is definitely about Joker's plan, and I feel like that's where it really works, as this type of story, this feels really consistent throughout, and they definitely do a good job kind of executing it with all Joker's plans and basically having to try and stop him. So the structure is very good, as the story does rely on it, and for a good reason, as it is very good. You get the first act, which pretty much introduces you to the Joker by seeing rob a bank with a bunch of his minions, and basically introducing how intimidating he's gonna be as a character, and basically showing how he's gonna be, make him feel more realistic. That there's the first time was also showing Batman kind of going off of these criminals with these imposters kind of there, where he kind of tells these imposters as there's not to really get in his way, and try not to, as I feel like that is a pretty good way to show what Batman has been doing since the last movie, and basically showing that there are more people trying to be like him, but that that Gotham City kind of makes him feel like a symbol, and basically and then there's the second act, which basically relies a lot on Joker's plans, as it's pretty much a lot of Harvey Dent, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman and Bruce Wayne trying to stop Joker from killing too many people, trying to figure out more of his plans, as he keeps trying to kill people until Batman reveals himself to the world. And there's kind of Harvey Dent, who falsely turns himself in, and then basically it causes this whole chase scene where Batman almost gets defeated by Joker, but then Commissioner Gordon kind of traps him, and brings him to prison, and kind of saves Harvey Dent until he gets into this warehouse at least. And then there's the whole scene of Batman interrogating the Joker, which is a very good scene. And it feels like it moves along the plot, as it basically just is showing a big interaction between Batman and Joker, and basically it just has showing a lot of how Joker is outsmarting Batman in this movie, and it just feels like he's doing a really good job with writing it in that kind of case, and as well as just how he kind of tricks him to mixes up where Rachel and Harvey Dent are trying to trick him, so his plans keep getting it in the way he wants it to. And then there's basically the third act where he basically just try to stop Joker from blowing up these boats and fighting by trying to finding the sonar technology, and then he kind of like defeats him and stops him from blowing up the boats, and then he tries to basically go after Harvey Dent, as he's now turned into Two-Face after some gasoline kind of like got on his face and severely injured from the Joker, and then basically he has to try and stop him from like killing Commissioner Gordon's kids, and in the sense Batman ends up killing him. It's usually I'm not a fan of Batman killing, but I feel like it was justified story-wise in this, as it makes sense, as he was about to kill like two innocent people. Not only that, but like he also wanted Harvey Dent to have a good legacy and didn't want to be known for bad. So he decided to straight up kill him so nobody really sees what the bad he did. And then basically the ending where he kind of takes responsibility for some of the stuff Harvey Dent did, and basically he just tried and basically run away and say that he's the hero that Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs. And I feel like just that message is just really heart-wrenching. I mean, it's very different, and it just shows how seriously that this movie is being taken, as well as the whole thing of how it's either you die a hero or you live long enough to watch yourself become the villain. Just that message of it just really works, as it kind of like justifies Harvey Dent's death more, and kind of why Batman wanted to kill him, and basically shows how he becomes the villain because he takes responsibility for what Harvey Dent did. And it basically leads straight into the next movie after Joker basically wins because everyone turns against Batman, and it goes straight into the next movie where Gotham is now against Batman. They don't really like him, basically setting up the next movie. The pacing is very good, as this movie is a bit long, but it doesn't really feel that long, as everything feels connected. Even with the kind of a lot to the story, I do feel like because of the execution, it makes the movie feel like it's going by pretty quick, as the pacing does feel pretty consistent throughout the movie, as it does feel like each scene does connect with each other. The action is really good, as they kind of gives the kind of more realistic stylistic choices, as basically it's kind of like has a bunch more realistic kind of feeling action, as like when Batman fights Joker in like the dinner party scene, like that scene just really feels really intimidating, as Joker's kind of like really intimidating, that as he's like really trying to like interrogate a bunch of people and trying to get, and then basically Batman goes like and fights him, and it's a lot of good kind of like stylistic choices in it, and as well just he kind of like throws down Rachel just in my master statement. Like just the amount of tension there is to that is what really helps. Same thing kind of goes for like the scene where Batman chases Joker with his motorcycle and chases Joker while he's in a truck, and I do feel like just that scene just feels really tension. I mean, there's so much tension to it. I mean, it just feels really engaging in it because of all the tension, and makes you kind of like feel more from the characters, as it just makes you feel more into the moment and how well it is, and just how much tension there is. Like, will he hit him, will he not? And then Joker kind of like gets captured. And there's the interrogation scene, which isn't exactly an action scene, but it moves along the plot really well. Kind of like expresses more of Joker's character, and I do feel like it serves purpose. And then there's also the scene in the climax where he fights Joker with a lot of tension to it, as a lot of like sonar technology used to it, and basically it's fight up. And like Joker kind of just uses these dogs against him and to fight him up, and then basically he has to try and fight up Joker, and then he ends up doing, and then like uses these new gadgets that he has on his like new bat suit to like defeat the Joker and like send him down basically to get arrested. And I do think that was a very fun action scene and had a lot to do, and it's really well wrapping up the rivalry between Batman and Joker throughout this movie. But then he has, when he's like kind of like fights Two-Face. It wasn't really much of a fight, just kind of goes in there and kills him. Yeah, it feels really good, and it does have a good ending that's like kind of expressed better. And all these action scenes are really good stylistic choices, and just makes sense for the movie. Bruce Wayne or Batman is a very well written character, as he does have a very good character arc, as pretty much the entire message of the movie is basically set on his character, as the whole he's the hero that Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. Kind of thing revolves a lot on his character arc. Same thing kind of goes for the message of it's either you die a hero or you live long enough to watch yourself become the villain. As basically, if you look at him, he's kind of like trying to be a symbol, like kind of hero throughout this movie, but like he realizes that Harvey Dent is basically the one that Gotham definitely needs, as he is locking up a bunch of prisoners, and then he kind of like kills him obviously, and like the whole kind of watch yourself become the villain kind of part of the message happens to him, as Gotham is now against him because he turns himself in, and basically, and now everyone's after him because he's watched himself become the villain. Like, that kind of part of his character arc is just really well written, and I do really like the whole execution of it, and just how well done his character was. It's really kind of impressed me, as you can definitely see he's gone a long way from the last movie, as he's definitely more appreciative of people like Harvey Dent, and just how Gotham kind of thinks of him. Commissioner Gordon has like a much bigger role than he did in the last movie, as basically his role in this movie is very big. I mean, he's trying to like team up with Harvey Dent and Batman, try and like track down the Joker's plans and basically stop him from killing too many people. And I just really like how they do a lot more with his character, and they also show a bit more of how much he loves his family when Harvey Dent goes after and tries to kill his family, and you can definitely see how much of a father he is, and it definitely like kind of like expands his character in that kind of case. In the last movie you did know he was a father, but like you know like what kind of father he was, and I do feel like this movie expanded that a bit. Alfred is very well written, as basically he's obviously still like the mentor kind of the Batman, and you can see how he's trying to help him throughout his decisions, and still kind of like gets into some arguments about how he might need more help throughout. And I do feel like as a mentor figure to Batman, he is pretty well written and basically tries to help him a lot, and I do feel like they do enough with these ideas to make him feel like that kind of character. Then there's Harvey Dent, or Two-Face, who's a really good character. I mean, basically, he's basically meant to be the symbol of hope for Gotham. He locks up a bunch of people, and now he gets a lot of trust from Batman, and basically, I do really like his character. I mean, for him only being in one movie, they did a really good job with his character, as basically his whole kind of character is that he's kind of helped Gotham and basically sent in a good reputation, and then he kind of like turns into Two-Face, which you can kind of get why he starts to kill people, as he's really mad as he feels kind of betrayed by Commissioner Gordon for not getting to Rachel in time, and he just doesn't really feel like, as Rachel is like really close to him, and she ends up dying, and it just turns him all psycho, and it makes sense, and then he ends up dying without really having to pay for those, because he'll be known as like the symbol of hope, and I do feel like that was a pretty smart idea to do that, despite how little the Two-Face was in it. I do feel like it was a smart idea to do that, the whole Two-Face thing, just in this movie, as it makes sense for the whole movie story-wise. Rachel's pretty well written, as you can see some of like the interactions she has with Bruce, like kind of like giving Alfred this note that he does end up burning for the end for obvious reasons, and as well as I do feel like her whole relationship with Harvey Dent is pretty well written, and it does kind of like help her become closer with Bruce, and basically Bruce kind of like appreciate her relationship with that a lot more, and then she ends up getting killed killed it. It's a pretty sad send off, as it should pretty much kill her off when she was the one that Batman wanted to save, but because the Joker's mind tricks ended up not happening, and making his plan go further along, and it's just really hurtfelt because of how it ended up happening, and it was a very well executed death. Then there's Lucius Fox, who is pretty well written. I mean, basically he is kind of similar character. He helps Batman make a new suit, gives him that, and also helps him in this journey, like to Hong Kong to capture this Lao guy, and basically he also like tries to help him in the climax with the whole new sonar thing, kind of like bringing his character into new way. And she does end up destroying that at the end, which makes sense, as he wasn't really up for the idea of it, so kind of makes sense for him to like log off of it and not really want to use it again. Joker is a very good villain. There's a reason why he is my favorite villain in all of movie history. He is just really intimidating. I mean, they only hint at some sort of backstory, as they say a little times that, and he hates his father, and I like that they keep it a mystery, and it basically makes him feel more intimidating. I mean, the only thing you really know about him is his origin story is that he hated his father, and that's about it. And it basically just makes him feel really intimidating, as throughout the movie he's basically motivated to keep on doing his ideas because Batman is just so fun to mess with him, and I do think that it's a a very intimidating villain, and it's just how he blows up all these buildings and just makes him feel like a real-life criminal for how he does it. And that's what makes him feel really intimidating throughout this. So the acting is just fantastic once again. Christian Bale once again returns and does a great job in his role, really feeling like the character, still feeling like he still looks like he wants to be there. Same thing goes for Morgan Freeman and all the other returning cast, like Michael Caine as well. They both also do a very good job, as well as Gary Oldman returns. All three of them really feel like their respective characters, and then there's also Aaron Eckhart, who's new in this movie, playing as Harvey Dent. Especially when he screams, he feels like a character. And then there's Heath Ledger, obviously. He's a standout of this movie, and just his whole performance as the Joker, just, you can see how determined he was to make a good role into this, as every line he says just feels so intimidating, and his delivery is just on point every time and in every scene, as he just feels so intimidating and feels like the villainous character of the Joker every time he says a line. And especially with his laugh, he felt like the character. Visual effects, once again, not really used very much. It's mostly practical. Most actors are doing their own stunts, so I do think the visuals were done pretty well, as it's mostly practical with actors doing their own stunts, and I think those were done pretty well. Cinematography is just fantastic. I mean, just looking at most of these scenes, each scene they try to show the character's emotions, and it really works. Especially the interrogation scene is one that I definitely like to point out, as that used many different camera angles, and each one made sense. I mean, it just kind of moved to different camera angles, each kind of like showing emotions of Joker and Batman, and I do feel like just that scene, and especially had great cinematography, and just felt like every time they kind of like try to use a close-up, it made sense as they're trying to like show scenes. And then also just the whole scene of just how they just like trying to show the landscapes in most scenes. It looks very good when they're trying to like use a whiteout to show the landscape, as they do work for each moment, and it does feel like they work into the movie pretty well. They did do a very good job with the lighting, as once again, a lot of this movie takes place at night, so when they use the lighting, you can see things, and basically they use enough of it so you can see what's going on, as most of this takes place at nights, but they do a good job kind of like showing what's going on, and you can still see what's going on, as they're still using enough so you can see what's going on. The editing is very good, as a lot of this movie does have like smooth transitions from one camera angle to another, and it's just this very smooth transition, especially the interrogation scene, like I mentioned earlier. Like that used a lot of camera angles, so like that obviously meant they had to use a lot of editing for that scene, and I do think that it feels smooth when they're going from one shot to another, and it definitely feels like that. And when it goes from one scene to another, it transitions pretty well, and I just feel like they did a really good job with the editing of this movie. To make it kind of like feel like it was smooth and make the movie feel kind of complete. The costume designs are very good. Batman does get a new costume in this. Well, I still kind of like the Batman Begins one a bit better, but I still really like this one, don't get me wrong. I like the kind of new looks. It still gives the kind of feeling of Batman, as it still feels like it's a Batman costume, and they just added a bit more gadgets, like things on his arm, and I do think that it definitely makes sense, and basically they can like use a more modern kind of suit for him, and I do think that it looks pretty well. Then the Joker's costume, it looks very good. You can tell they took a lot of time into this, as you can see like the purple coat is obviously is like the iconic Joker coat, and does a very good job to kind of represent the comics there, and then as well as just the whole makeup on Joker is what really stands out to me, as you can see the time and effort they put into it with how they fully made his face white, and then obviously around the eyes they kind of like make it black so it looks more intimidating than Joker does usually, and it's the black around the eyes just made him look more intimidating, and it's still, while still kind of like feeling like the Joker, so I really like him. The set designs are very good, as they kind of like explore new areas of Gotham, and I do feel like when they kind of explore new areas, it looks pretty good, and I do think that they do a pretty good job of that, as well as like the kind of design of when they go to Hong Kong for like one scene, and that looked pretty good, as it's kind of like a new kind of thing, and I just think that they did a pretty good job showing like these skyscraper kind of thing, and then as well as just the entire looks of Gotham just looks very good and kind of modernized, and as well as obviously Wayne's Manor is burnt down from the last movie and they're still rebuilding it, so they had to find a replacement for the Batcave, and I do feel like this replacement for the Batcave is small, but like that's kind of the point. I mean, it's just a small replacement, and I still really like the looks of it, and it's kind of like underground and like under like the Wayne Enterprise building for sure, and it looks very good, and I do think that they did a pretty good job in that kind of case, kind of as like a small replacement before Wayne's Manor just rebuilt. But overall, The Dark Knight is a masterpiece, and not only my favorite comic book movie, but honestly, my favorite movie of all time. So I'm going to give The Dark Knight a 10 out of 10. So that was my review of The Dark Knight. What are your thoughts on The Dark Knight? Tell me in the comments below. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.